Hi, I'm Jake White, and this is my senior Capstone collection. I decided to create a print collection that is focused on fungus and the textures that they create in nature. I decided to go with fungus because I've always had a fascination with them, and I've developed a connection with them over the years, being out in the woods, hiking, growing up, and taking pictures of different funguses that I would see growing on the forest floor. My mood board is a snapshot of a few different textures of different funguses that I felt were a strong color palette and allowed me to play a lot with different textures and color combinations. I have a nice earthy side with some blues and greens, grays, and then a warmer side with some yellows and oranges. This is a process page from my sketchbook. From the beginning of my research, I started with mycelium, which is an underground network web-like root structure that is created when fungus grows on the floor. So there's actually a web that connects these different funguses that are spread out that you can't see. And on the right, we have some texture work with some acrylic paint. Here's a page of a particular type of mold that I actually found quite interesting and beautiful, and I thought it had a very nice color palette. And this is black bread mold, a very common mold that grows on the loaf of bread in the house, in the kitchen. It has these nice blues and greens as well as neutrals. It also has maximum contrast with the black that it also has to offer and the white. So this was a very important image and page for my sketchbook, being that it really solidified my color palette. Here's another page of some acrylic experimentations, focusing on creating different textures with line work and brush strokes, dry brush strokes. This was a very successful page, in my opinion, for my book. I was trying to recreate the black bread mold that solidified my color palette. I thought it was important that I got to know it, so I wanted to really try to capture it. And I did this using watercolor, ink, rubbing alcohol, salt. I did a lot of layering, and I think it was very successful. Created a very, very nice texture. Lastly, here's a page of some motifs that I developed further in my process. This came out of looking at my collection, and it seemed a little bit on the heavy side, so I wanted to create some more negative space. So I focused on creating some smaller motifs with some brush strokes and different circular motifs. Now I'll be showing you my prints for my collection. Here are two textural prints, very opposite in contrast. I think they pair nicely together. The one on the left is really inspired by the black bread mold, as seen in the previous slides. Here are another two prints, a denser one on the right with some nice greens. I think it was very successful in being that it really looks like a moldy, cellular texture that is very interesting and provocative. And a lighter print on the left, again working with that negative space to create some air and roominess in the collection. And here are another two prints, working with some layering and opacity differences on the right, some watercolor motifs that I've scanned in, and on the left, a little bit more of a literal representation of a fungus, working with those warmer tones of the color palette. Here's another print along with a mapping, a very textural and busy print, very eye-catching. With the yellows, I think it really pops. This creates a very timeless piece, if you will. You can really get lost in it. And here's a little bit more of a lighter repeat. I use some abstracted fungus motifs, which I created using watercolor. I then lowered the opacity to create a nice layering effect and overlappings on the print. And here's a mapping on a nice hat. I think it looks very nice. Here is a little bit, again, of an area print. Although it is quite busy, there is that white negative space that breaks this up and creates an interesting print. Here's a mapping on a hiking shoe, which is a little bit out of the ordinary, being that they're most of the time browns, neutrals, things of the such. And lastly, here is a print created using a dry brush method. This is to replicate the gills underneath the caps of mushrooms. So I think these are very interesting motifs, being that they're very present within fungus. So I wanted to use these. I thought it was successful. I was happy that I was able to capture this with the dry brush. Finally, my collection together. It's 10 prints total. I think there's a nice wide range of color and different textures. Being that my collection is texture based, I wanted to really focus on having a variety of methods used to create them, as well as final products. Thank you for viewing my collection. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.